Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the CSITEd Experts Data Science A to Z Bootcamp. In this video, I will discuss how to split data set into training set and test set. Okay, so test set. So if you do a Google search about training set versus test set, that you will get some information like this. For this, these are the two pages, web pages I got from, but these have some information you can I like you to read through. But in shortcut, I will tell you what you need to remember. Okay, so a training set, okay, in machine learning, a training set is the data set used to train a model. Okay, used to train a model, that you will develop your model based on your training set, and then when you develop your model based on your training set, you will use your test set to measure the performance of your model, that how good the model is that you have just developed. Is the model reliable or is not reliable? So then you actually, the concept is that you will split the data set into two sets. Okay, uh, two sets, one is training set, in another into test set. Okay, then there is a technique and how to split the data set into training set and test set. We will discuss this soon. Okay, so remember that your test set may be from an existing test set, but that is not desired. Okay, or your training set, that means I want to mean that your training set and test set should not be two different set, because remember that for a company, right? Okay, so you are if you use a separate training set and data set, then that may happen that you will have two different data sets from two different companies. Okay, for instance, you cannot compare mm, employees salary from one country to another country, or from one company to another company. That will not be more homogeneous or similar. This is why we need to split this data set into two sets. One is training set and another is a test set. So until now, I believe that you understand until this part. You got my so from my salary data frame data set, I got my experience, and this is experience as a matrix, and I got my, okay, salary vector. Okay, so vector has no column, but a matrix has column. Okay, so okay, so in Python there is a library. It is called, okay, so from sklearn library, and there is a cross validation from sklearn cross validation. We will import training test okay, split method. Okay, we will use training test split method. We will import this method, and this method actually, so I will show you, this method is used to split. This method is used, okay, I got it. This method is used to split the data set into training set and test set. So what is this is very simple way. Once you understand this and this technique, then you will remember forever. So how do you do is this that you said I'm declaring two variables, experience training, exp train and exp train test, and I'm using this method train test split method. This is my original experience experience matrix, and I will put test size equal to 0.2. For instance, what you see that this method is taking arrays, so I can give multiple arrays over here, multiple matrices or arrays over here, and there are some options. So what are the options? These are the things, the optional parameters you need to remember. First one, you need to assign either test size or size or train size. Okay, so test size, the sum of test size and train size will be 1. Okay, so the convention is, so here in this method, so the in your parameter list you can set test size equal to 0.2, that means 0.20, that means 20% of your test size data, and you can select, for instance, do them. I'm working on my experience data set only, not for training, for my salary as well as right now. So then if my test size is 0.2, then my training size will be 0.8, right? Because the sum of these two must be 1. Okay, but the thing is that once you define either your test set or your train set, you don't need to define the another one, because the other one will be set up by default. Because when you say your test size equal to 0.2 or 20%, then your train size will be by default 80%, right? So when either you need to define either your test size or your train size. Okay, so if I say my train size 0.8, then my test size is by default 0.2. Okay, so now there is an important question, that how much data we need to put as my train size training set, and how much data as I need to put in my test site. You know that, remember that one thing I told you, that the sum of the training set and test set will be 1. So if I type in training, TRAINING, okay, how many characters I do have? 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. Okay, so I have 8 characters for my training. Okay, the word training. So remember that 8 characters means 80%. 8 characters implies, so 80%, that means my 80% data should be put in my training set, then my test set will be 20%. So this is the most convenient way, that that standard way is one of the standard way that people usually assign 80% data as training set and then 20% as test set. Okay, so sometime, okay, so you may define 75% as your training set, and then 25% will be your test set. Okay, but how sometimes people confuse how much I need to put in my training set and how much I need to put in my test set. So this is the way that I remembered, and if you follow this technique, that training, the word training has 8 characters, so that is 80%. Okay, and the remaining part will be in your test set. Okay, so this is the train test split method we will use in order to split our data and in training set. Let me show you, run these two lines of this code, and you see that if you go to variable explorer, then I see that I have, for my, let us go only experience, for my experience test, I have my, in my training set I have 80% of 50. 80% of 50 is 100 out of 80 out of 100, that means 40 out of 50. So this is my 40 is my training set, and then 40 rows are randomly selected in my training set. Then I have 10. Okay, then I have 10 for my test set. Okay, later we will show you how to use this training set and data set, test set actually. Okay, so for similarly for my salary training set, I will get 80%, that means 40. Okay, this is a vector. Okay, so this is why there is no column size. So column size is default 1, by default 1. So I have 40 rows for my training set, and I have 10 for my test set. Okay, so this is the way that you can use the train underscore test underscore split method. Okay, so since this method is a large method name, it may be difficult for you to remember this name, so let me do it differently. So import, so like here from sklearn import cross validation as cv. Then I said cv my training comma test. That means I'm declaring two variables at a time here, equal to cv dot train. So once you click on cv, then if you press dot and then train, then you will get this, right? You will get this method automatically. So in this way you don't need to remember the exact format, but you can use this one. Okay, so the program is running, so it's good, it is running, everything is good. So you got my training set and data set. Okay, so before I wrap up, so what I was telling that, so please go through these slides and then this website, and you see that how data science or machine learning models work. You say that training set is and use and test set, how they are separated and used to do validation. Okay, so remember over here my training set will have about 80% data, and my test set will have about only 20% data. So this is why 80-20 is a good combination. Okay, so but later you will know more about training set and test set, and soon we will use our training set and test set data. But for now, just remember this is the way that we will use this library, okay, cross validation library, and we will use the train underscore test dot split method in order to split our data set into training and test set. So if you remember this way, my training set will have 80% of my my data. So then I like to type it here, 80%, and then definitely, and then my test set will have 20%. So in very rare case you will use test set 30% and then training set 70% or less. So but this is the standard way. So I believe you will remember this forever. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching this video.